Tell me your thoughts on that when I ask him that question.
Casey, I think it's a community like Ladue that will make this immigration reform happen, and here's why. In Ladue, there are a lot of families who hire domestic workers, gardeners, nannies, maids, and many of them are undocumented. And Senator McCain of Arizona, a Republican, made this point just last week. If we can trust our children and our homes to these workers, good, hardworking people, why can't we trust them to be citizens? So I think Ladue's a great example of why we're going to get this immigration reform, because I think St. Louis is a good community. The people of Ladue are good people, and they know that these are hardworking people and they should have a path to citizenship.
Going back to the top of the show, we got a kind of our guest laid out for us the picture of immigration in St. Louis. That might be the first thing that comes to people's mind when we talk about immigration, but it's a lot broader than that. Would you agree with that in terms of what immigration looks like here in St. Louis and what it means to our region?
You've heard a lot of great comments tonight about the economic benefits and everything. And the city of St. Louis understands it because the city's always been welcoming to the Bosnians and the Hispanics. And if it weren't for those two populations coming in over the last 10, 15 years, our population, as Anna indicated, would be declining even more than it is. So it's an important issue. We need to have reform at the national level instead of the local communities like Valley Park and even the state of Missouri dabbling in immigration control, which they shouldn't be doing, and now the federal government is stepping up to do it.
I think when you're referencing Valley Park, there was some regulation proposed on housing requirements and restrictions dealing with your legal status.
Right, and a lot of communities around the country dealt with this, attempting to do immigration control at the local level, and it was inappropriate because it's preempted by the federal government. And now in their defense, what they're going to say is because they took those steps over the last few years, they're the ones that got the federal government to finally act. So if they want to take credit for that, that's fine. But it's clear now moving forward, Congress, if they have any kind of reform at all, comprehensive or even less than comprehensive, the message is clear that the states and the local municipalities need to stay out of this.
Okay, stay out of it legally, but is there something that St. Louis can be doing as a region to roll out the welcome mat a little more, or should we, or are we already?
Well, Anna Crossland's International Institute is really the premier agency helping people get businesses started, helping people learn English, helping them pass the citizenship test. So we have a great social network. Jorge's Casa de Salud providing free medical care to immigrants. So we've got that network. We could do a lot more, but I think we are a welcoming community, and that's why communities like St. Louis are going to help the reform happen.
Something that comes to mind, I saw a tweet here just a minute ago on Twitter talking about, what we're talking about is the legal path, but someone on Twitter brought up the fact that if you go down to the Boot Hill, if you're in southeast Missouri, you do have undocumented folks who do what we might think of when we kind of stereotypically think of this immigration debate in Arizona or California, right. Doing a lot of agricultural work. How much of a factor is that in Missouri? What can you lay the land there,
something does need to be done to regularize the system, and the proposals in Congress deal with guest workers and their special provisions for farm workers. I think if we had a system where those workers could come and go from Central America, Mexico, where they're coming from, a lot of them don't want to stay here permanently. They want to work and go back to their communities in Mexico or Central America. And that's part of immigration reform too. The Catholic bishops have made this point that if we help with economic development in the poor countries, where people wouldn't have to make the dangerous trip to America, wouldn't have to come here illegally, that would be part of the reform as well. Because not everybody who has come to America came as their first choice. They came out of desperation. A lot of people who emigrate here would have preferred to stay in their home country, but they fled war, they fled poverty, they fled persecution.
We're talking a lot about kind of the economics of it. Is there a compassion component to this, or should there be?
There has to be, and there's some literature out there about the study of immigration reform and how world religions look at it. And every world religion, if they only agree on one thing, it's that we should welcome the stranger. So the compassion part of it comes from religious beliefs, but it also comes from our own immigration code. We've talked a little bit tonight about refugee status. Status of people seeking asylum. When we had the earthquake 3 years ago in Haiti, we just celebrated 30th anniversary. Devastating earthquake. Tens of thousands of Haitians were in the United States at that time. Within 2 weeks of the earthquake, we gave them legal status, not citizenship, but we gave them legal status out of a sense of compassion. So the immigration code already has compassionate parts to it. Some of those need to be expanded. I mean, is it any different to be fleeing a country because of a natural disaster or fleeing because drug dealers have beheaded your uncle in Mexico? How is that any different? People are fleeing out of desperation, and we should be compassionate about that.
Something Nadia Brown